Welcome to Oil Drop Podcast. Oilers Talk with Darryl and Stephen.
Welcome back to the Oil Drop Podcast, another week of the 2025-2026 NHL season for the Edmonton Oilers. I'm Stephen. He is Darryl. First order of business, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Kasperi Kapanen were back on the ice for practice. Your thoughts on them possibly returning, maybe not against the Dallas Stars, but possibly against the Seattle Kraken?
Yeah, 2 games this week, so they have a lot of time to practice and get ready for game shape, I guess. More excited for obviously Nuge, but Kapanen, we'll see what his role will be when he gets back.
I like that Kapanen can also provide a lot of speed. He is a fast skater, and maybe he can help with bottom six scoring. He's had decent moments as an Oiler. Where would you place Nugent Hopkins in the lineup if he comes back, aside from the top line, because that's usually a given?
Yeah, I think that's where McDavid likes to play with him. So probably go back to the Hyman, Hopkins, McDavid line, but Rosovic is going to make that hard. And then also, who else was there? There's another player, but I'm having a hard time finding who I would take out of the lineup. Period. Right now, there's a bit of a log jam there.
And sometimes coaches have favorites. That's another thing too. Mind you, David Tomashek had a goal, his second goal of the year. Good for him. Other than that, I mean, do you want to just tell it like it is with Henrik and Janmark?
Yeah, I think Janmark had a pretty good game against Florida, but Henrik, obviously, there's a lot left to be said with him, I guess. Like, he's not really producing, but again, he's a favorite of the coach and of the team, and he's a leader in the dressing room. So it depends on how much value you put into that.
I remember reading an article after the 2023-2024 season when it was during Edmonton's really bad nightmare start to that season. And it was around the time that Jay Woodcroft got fired. And Janmark apparently gave a speech in the locker room about how he dealt with stuff like that on other teams. I can't remember which team it was specifically, but he did say something like that. So maybe that's why they value him too.
Yeah, he has a lot of experience with New Jersey and the Ducks and
Stars.
so yeah, the Stars, yeah. So he's got some, obviously the Stars have had some different coaching. New Jersey, I think, has been pretty solid with keeping their guys throughout the years, their coaches, and the same with the Ducks as well. So, but I think he might be referring to the Stars there. But yeah,
because they went to a final before in recent memory.
Yeah,
it was probably the Stars.
Probably, yeah. So there are actually two guys on the lineup. I mean, with Lazar and Klettenberg. Although I did like Klettenberg's game there on Friday.
First NHL game. Congrats to Klettenberg.
Yeah, exactly. And he had quite an emotional game as well against the Stanley Cup champs, which we'll get into later. Like I said, there's a bit of a logjam with Noah Felp is already being scratched, and Lazar is 30. He's not exactly like a 35-year-old guy that's okay with being scratched all the time. I think he'd rather play. And Tomasak is probably going to end up playing as well. I mean, that's why they signed him last year during the playoffs. It's tough to see who's going to go down, but that's
Right.
a good problem to have.
Mm-hmm. And so I don't listen to the Oilers Now podcast a lot, but I read one article about that podcast. And Bob Stauffer had Elliot Friedman as a guest, and they were talking about Darnell Nurse about how he might be feeling some of the pressures from the fan base. Your thoughts?
He has, unless he's just been living under a rock, but he should have been seeing the pressures from a long time ago. Basically ever since he signed that contract. So if it's starting to bother him now, um, you know, maybe he should let somebody take away his social media. But not quite sure. He's been the same player this whole time, kind of a second line defenseman, maybe third line defenseman every now and then, depending on who's hot. But um, you know, it's quite clear that if they could move that contract, they would have already a while back, just because of the cap crunch that they've been in over the last 9-ish years or so. They, I mean, as soon as they signed that contract, it was bad, but it was also right before the pandemic, and so it's tough to really count that. But yeah, I think that that's just talk. Obviously, in a perfect world, like if you're playing a video game, you trade that contract just for the numbers. But the um, the ties that he has with McDavid, it's tough to see him go anywhere.
Yeah. I read a rumor during the summer that Stan Bowman approached players with no movement clause asking if they were willing to be traded. Nurse was one of the rumored players, but then like a couple days afterwards, he like posted an Instagram story with the guy from the Why You Always Lying music video, sort of like saying, "Hey, this didn't happen."
Yeah,
And then, like a couple years ago, he said on Luke Gazdick's podcast, I can't remember the name of that podcast, but he basically said, "It's like I get blamed even for the traffic on Stony Plain." So he tends to laugh at himself a lot, even in those situations. Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. It's you should expect it already, the pressure. Um, there are moments from Nurse this season I don't like. I think it's when I'm not complimenting the goalies, but when I say not every goal against is the goalie's fault, that is partially Nurse that I'm referring to.
yeah. Nobody ever talks about the Winnipeg Jets' lack of defensemen, but yet they have one of the best goalies in the league, so it kind of covers that up, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, any mistake that a defenseman in Edmonton is going to make, it just gets blown up because they don't have confidence in their goalie, and that's fairly evident considering the Buffalo game where the guy made the comments after the game or during the game, I guess, about Skinner being pulled, and then
You're
there's
already
things.
playing with an empty net.
Yeah, basically playing in front of an empty net the whole game in Buffalo, and Buffalo shouldn't really say much considering their track record. But yeah, I mean, Nurse, obviously that contract would be great to move, but it's not going to happen. I don't think in the next, even in the next contract that he gets, which will probably be more considering where the cap's going. So, I don't see them moving on from him. If they would have, it would have been a long time ago. And there has been some rumors about his no trade clause. I think in 2027 is a 14 team no trade clause. It turns from a straight no trade to a 14 team. And then I can actually look that up to make sure it's 2027, but I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Darnell Nurse 2027, 2028. So for the last 3 years of that deal, it turns into a 14 team no trade. And then some things about the offseason. When you had mentioned there was a guy that they were talking to about waiving the no trade. I'm pretty sure that was the guy they traded to Boston, Arvidsson, that they were referring to. But yeah, and then somewhere down the line, a reporter must have thought maybe Nurse is moving, but I highly doubt that.
So you mentioned the Buffalo game. That is the first recap of the past week. And unfortunately, I do have to mention Nurse again because I've noticed a lot of goals this season against the Oilers where they let players stand in front of the net for as long as they want. There can be traffic in front of the net, or they can collect rebounds, and nobody is challenging that player hard enough. And Nurse was that kind of casualty on two of those goals. One goal was a screen, and then the first goal against was, it was a nice move by the Buffalo forward. I can't remember who it was, but Nurse could have tried to outmuscle him.
Yeah, and he has to remember that he is 6'4".
Yeah,
Sometimes people need to remind him, I guess. And he, as skilled as he's always been in the minors and wherever else he's played, he needs to remember that he is a bigger player and he has speed. He can get to these people, like these players in front of the net. He can get there, and he is stronger than, I would say, 95% of them. So trying to remind that guy that he is actually a defenseman sometimes, and that he can push people around in front of the net, especially. But yeah, that game, I think most of the players lost their life, especially lost their energy going into the third period.
yeah. Granted, they always struggle against weaker teams. They tend to play down to the level of their opponents a lot. They don't wake up for those games. And even if you're expected to be a big contender, that doesn't mean you deserve to win every night. You have to earn wins, and bottom feeding teams, like no one expects anything of them. They're expected to be at the bottom of the standings, but they still play for something to prove. They still want to get after the top teams.
Yeah, and the Oilers play bad against on no-name goalies typically, which just something that Buffalo had, I guess, in that game. I forget the goalie's name, but he was on a bit of a hot streak, and this team itself was on a bit of a hot streak, and the Oilers just took them lightly. That's
Yeah.
basically the gist of that game.
So the next game after that was against Washington. Ovechkin has 7 goals in the month of November. His team is playing another game right now. I'm going to have to check the score later. But yeah, he's not slowing down anytime soon. And because we were trashing Nurse for the last game, we got to give him props, even if a loss, for 2 goals. Another 2 goal game for him.
Yeah, I guess he can only score 2 goal games, but throwing the puck on the net sometimes works out, and that's basically what we saw in that one. 7-4, still not a win, obviously,
Still not
against the Capitals
ideal.
team. Yeah, not ideal. Goaltending wise, Skinner made 14 saves, so that's not not a great look. The Oilers got a power play goal, looks like, from McDavid and Leon. Um, yeah, some good stuff from that game, but also obviously Washington. If you let in 7 goals, it's pretty tough to win any games in this league.
Yeah. Next game after that, it was a back-to-back game against Tampa Bay. Calvin Pickard had a really good game there, and we've talked about Pickard a bit, just as much as Skinner, but he was great up until overtime. And I mentioned last week when Skinner had 2 straight games of making a big save in overtime, and then his team scoring the game-winning goal seconds later. And Andrei Vasilevsky did the exact same thing for Tampa against us with Pickard in that game.
Yeah, yeah. Vasilevsky. I mean, that was a pretty good highlight at the end of the game. Um, Not sure if he was quite aware of what he was doing, but he's made the nice save with his leg. And then, of course, in overtime, when that happens, usually the puck goes the other way and it's a breakaway, a partial breakaway that turned into a full breakaway. And then, of course, Gensel lights up Skinner pretty, or I guess Pickard pretty easily. Pickard did have a great game, 33 saves, 33 shots on goal, I guess. So it turns out to 31 saves, but a really solid performance from him. Frederick got his first goal in 20 games. And yeah, some a couple of injuries. Wallman got hurt a little bit in that game, and Regula suffered a hit as well. So, but we'll see if they come back and play. I guess I'm not sure if they played in the next game, but um, definitely Frederick scoring helped and showed that he's bringing some energy. I think he's hearing some noise as well that the contract is an 8-year deal and he's getting close to 4 million, so he better start playing. Yeah.
Would you have challenged the tying goal in the third period of that game? There was a lot of talk of that being offside, and it looked offside from from our TV's angle, but sometimes you see something different. So I'm asking you, like, do you think that was offside? Should the Oilers have challenged that goal?
I think given the record of the Oilers' challenges, I would have not because they've been really good at looking at that view or at the views, and the leg looked like it swiped through just in time. That would have been a tough one to overturn. Have a 1-1 game and then a power play right away. That would have been a pretty big momentum killer.
And with Tampa's skill, I mean, they could easily score that power play.
Oh
Maybe
yeah,
not
definitely.
easily, but they'd have a really good chance.
Yeah, yeah, and towards the end of the game, you just don't really want to take that risk. It's better to maybe let
Right.
that go and get that maybe for sure 1 point instead of
Exactly.
losing the game and with a minute left. So a few
Yeah.
minutes left.
And then the last game of the week, the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers. It That win doesn't erase the last two seasons, but sometimes you just want to say, "Yay, we beat them at something."
Yeah, we beat them at something, and Skinner was good that game. He came in, made 35 saves. And Bouchard had 3 assists. It was a big game. Roslovic was definitely, he started the game really strong. First period, he got 2 goals pretty quickly within that game. And it looked like everybody was rolling. They knew what game of the week they wanted to play. I guess they decided not to play any of the other ones, but this one they were there for.
If only that version of Sergei Bobrovsky was in Game 7 of 2024 or Game 6 of 2025.
I would have liked if they could have given him an extension already. That they could maybe give him 12 million. That probably won't happen in Florida, but yeah, that version of him didn't look very good. You know, hopefully they give him his money before he shows who he really is, I guess. But obviously he is one of the best goalies. He's just getting a little bit older, and
Future Hall of Famer.
yeah, future Hall of Famer. He's had some stretches in his career where, especially early on in Florida, where he was potentially a trade target just because he wasn't playing very well. But um, altogether, his career has been obviously winning Stanley Cups, and he's had a really great career.
That's an underrated non-move by Bill Zito. I mean, he acquired Sam Bennett. He acquired Matthew Tkachuk. Like, that's the heartbeat of his GM tenure there. But keeping faith in the goalie sounds good.
I thought that it was an odd timing for them to draft Spencer Knight so high when they had just signed Bobrovsky right before. I thought, as a fan looking in, that it was an odd thing to sign a goalie for 8 years and then draft one that's 18 and super high in the draft. So, obviously, Spencer has gone through some things in his career. He was in the player assistance program for a bit, but he's gone to Chicago and he's shown that he's a really good goalie.
Yep.
But obviously, when it comes down to winning two Stanley Cups, you have to trade a guy like that in order to get that second one. You do
Mhm.
that every time, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And so that brings us to previewing this week. And like you said, only two games. We get a bit of a break. Um, Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, depending when you watch this, it is against the Dallas Stars. And I'm going to give you a bit of a trivia question as I'm looking at the TSN website. Who has the most penalty minutes this season?
Probably Dallas, looking at the Rantanen
Yep.
Rantanen week that he's had, the week that he's been. Yeah, was I right? Probably
57
Dallas.
penalty minutes.
Oh boy,
57 penalty minutes for the goon Mikko Rantanen.
there you go. Yeah, honestly, looking at those videos, I just didn't see that it was his fault for both of them. The guy turns in like the Flames player turns into him, and the Islanders player, um, the Russian defenseman, I forget his name, but he gets a pass from his goalie in a really tough situation and stumbles and gets. It looked like he got pushed, but both of them were, you know, I would say goon as in he didn't lick somebody's face or anything. He's more wrong place at the wrong time, I guess, but also battling hard for the puck. So he's a big guy. He's 6'5".
It's always tough. Like, you have to consider positioning, you have to take that into account. And then also, it's just, even if there is no intent to injure, you just call a penalty anyway. So that's probably why we're hearing that, we're seeing that reputation about Rantanen. Just like we're laughing, like, look at all those penalty minutes. It's wrong place, wrong time. And again, when it's there, you have to call it anyway.
Yeah, well, I've ref for the last 5 years. In minor hockey, if you injure somebody, it's an automatic gross. But like an automatic gross penalty, so I think you get 3 games automatically. Um, I mean, that's kind of a weird rule, but in the NHL, you'd hope that they could see that it was a bad position for, I mean, yeah, the defenseman, I forget his name, but also Rantanen to be in that spot, barreling down on a player, and he's trying to get the puck just like everybody else. So.
It's kind of like high sticking. You're not trying to get your stick in someone's face, but you got your stick in someone's face. So that has to be a penalty.
Yeah, and same with tripping. Sometimes you have your stick there. It's not like you're going around trying to trip someone. The only one that is like the obvious ridiculous play is when somebody dives. Like that's the clear penalty. But in every other instance, basically, it's about battling and wanting to get the puck. And if you can see that it's an automatic, like that somebody's trying to injure someone, then for sure, like you give them some games. But in this instance, I think the league could have gone with a fine again. But I think a lot of people would have been pretty upset about 2 plays in 1 week that injured a guy pretty good.
And I've never understood the embellishment rule. Like, you call someone for diving, but then you still call a tripping penalty or a high sticking penalty to the other guy anyway. Either it's a diving penalty or it isn't. Pick one.
Yeah, as a ref, you kind of you see the play so quickly. You already have your hand up for the trip, for the cross check or whatever it might be, and then you realize what actually happened after, and that's the reason for it, because you can't say that's not a call after all, because that's 1,000 times worse. But anyway, it's just
And
my 2 cents.
second game and last game of the week against the Seattle Kraken. And that's going to be on the road again, but it's pretty close to Vancouver, so it won't be as much of a travel. And as mentioned earlier, it's a 3-day break after the Tuesday game. Former Oiler and now Kraken captain Jordan Eberle scored 2 goals against us in the last meeting.
Yeah, for that game, Seattle is second in the conference. They're playing pretty well. They have some strong goaltending and a good mix of veterans and young players. So that's going to be a tough game for them too. I can see them losing both of these games this week, just purely off of the teams that they're playing. But the Oilers find a way to play against some of the stronger teams and win those games. They are, two times they've gone to the finals in a row, and they've been in the finals, and they know how to play these strong opponents pretty well.
Yeah.
And so, Seattle especially, they're playing pretty well right now, and I had them I think at the beginning of the year I had them out of the playoffs, but right now they're playing pretty well. They got the second spot. So.
Yeah. For humorous reasons, I disagree with the idea of Edmonton possibly losing both games, because beating Dallas and Seattle a week after losing to Buffalo and Washington would be the most Oilers thing ever.
That would be typical for sure. I mean, you take a team like Buffalo that kind of embarrassed you, not kind of, a team that Buffalo that embarrassed you, and their announcers embarrassed you. I mean, if that's not a wake up call, I'm not sure what is.
Yeah. And that just about does it for this week. Tune in next week for more Oilers talk. You've been listening to the Oil Drop Podcast. Go Oilers.
Go Oilers. Have a good week.